Hey everybody, and welcome to the Sonic Stories podcast, where I'm going to tell you scary stories. Well, they're not always going to be scary, but there's a lot of scary stories in the world, so most of the time, it's going to be scary stories. And this is my new podcast I'm doing, blah blah blah. Watch my update video, you haven't seen it. It explains everything. Okay. The first story I'm gonna sing. Geez, no, I'm gonna tell you is The Smiling Man. Now, this is a true story that someone posted on the internet. There's a lot of speculation whether it's fake or not, because it was just if a guy made it up and posted it on the internet, or if it actually happened. It's one of those urban legends. No one knows if they're actually true. No one knows if they're actually fake. But it's in the in-between, and this is going to be very enjoyable. Unless you're watching this, to lull you into sleep. It might, but it'll lull you into a nightmare, maybe. Okay, let's continue with the story. The Smiling Man. Okay. About 5 years ago, I lived downtown in a major city in the U.S. I've always been a night person, so I would often find myself bored after my roommate, who was decidedly not a night person, went to sleep. To pass the time, I used to go for long walks and spend the time thinking. Who does that? No one. Oh well, I'll continue. I spent 4 years like that, walking alone at night, and never once had a reason to feel afraid. I always used to joke with my roommate that even the drug dealers in the city were polite. But all of that changed in just a few minutes of one evening. It was Wednesday, somewhere between 1 and 2 in the morning. Well, that's not that late at night. I've been to parties that lasted that long. If anything, the scary stuff happens at 4 and 5 because no one's awake then. Even the partiers are asleep then. So no one knows what happens. Dun, dun, dun. Okay. It was a Wednesday somewhere between 1 and 2 in the morning, and I was walking near a police patrol park quite a ways from my apartment. It was a quiet night, even for a weeknight, with very little traffic and almost no one on foot. The park, as it was most nights, was completely empty. I turned down a short side street in order to loop back to my apartment when I first noticed him. At the far end of the street, on my side, was the silhouette of a man dancing. It was a strange dance, similar to a waltz, but he finished each box with an odd forward stride. Okay, let me explain that. The box is when you spin around, you turn to the left and you turn to the right, and when you turn back to the left, that's a box. So he turned to the left, he turned to the right, he turned to the left, but that time he stepped forward a bit. At least that's what I think. I had a friend explain that to me. Okay, he finished each box with an odd forward stride. I guess you could say he was dance walking, headed straight for me. Deciding he was probably drunk, I stepped as close as I could to the road to give him the majority of the sidewalk to pass me by. The closer I got, the more I realized how gracefully he was moving. He was very tall and lanky, and wearing an old suit. He danced closer still until I could make out his face. His eyes were open wide and wild, head tilted back slightly, looking off at the sky. His mouth was formed in a painfully wide cartoon of a smile. Between the eyes and the smile, I decided to cross the street before he danced any closer. I took my eyes off of him to cross the empty street. As I reached the other side, I glanced back, and then stopped dead in my tracks. He had stopped dancing, and was standing with one foot in the street, perfectly parallel to me. He was facing me, but still looking skyward, smile still wide on his lips. I was completely and utterly unnerved by this. I started walking again, but kept my eyes on the man. He didn't move. Once I had put about half a block between us, I turned away from him for a moment to watch the sidewalk in front of me. The street and the sidewalk ahead of me were completely empty. Still unnerved, I looked back to where he had been to where he had been standing to find him gone. For the briefest of moments, I felt relieved until I noticed him. He had crossed the street and was now slightly crouched down. I couldn't tell for sure due to his distance in the shadows, but I was certain he was facing me. I looked away from him for no more than 10 seconds, so it was clear that he had moved fast. I was so shocked that I stood there for some time, staring at him, and then he started moving toward me again. He took giant, exaggerated, tiptoed steps, as if he were a cartoon character sneaking up on someone. Except he was moving very, very quickly. I like to say at this point I ran away or pulled out my pepper spray or my cell phone or anything at all. But I didn't. I just stood there, completely frozen, as the smiling man crept toward me. And then he stopped again, about a car length away from me, still smiling his smile, still looking to the sky. Then I found my voice. I blurted out the first thing that came to mind. "What the bleep do you want?" in an angry, commanding tone. What came out was a whimper. What the Regardless of whether or not humans can smell fear, they can certainly hear it. I heard it in my own voice, and that only made me more afraid. But he didn't react to it at all. He just stood there, smiling. And then, after what felt like forever, he turned around, very slowly, and started walking away, just like that. Not wanting to turn my back to him again, I just watched him go until it was far enough to almost be out of sight. And then I realized something. He wasn't moving away anymore, nor was he dancing. I watched in horror as the distant shape of him grew larger and larger. He was coming back my way, and this time he was running. I ran too. I ran until I was off the side of the road and back onto a better lit road with sparse traffic. Looking behind me then, he was nowhere to be found. The rest of the way home, I kept glancing over my shoulder, always expecting to see his stupid smile, but he was never there. I lived in that city for 6 months after that night, and I never went out for another walk. There was something about his face that always haunted me. He didn't look drunk. He didn't look high. He was completely and utterly insane. And that's a very, very scary thing to see. And that's the end. And how long has this been? It's only been 8 minutes. We can't have an 8-minute long podcast, so after that scary thing, I'll do 2 more short scary stuff and then some silly things. I'll go on Yahoo News and find some dumb articles. If you guys have ever seen the Cox and Crandor podcast, I'm basically doing what they're gonna do. Okay. I'm going to short scary stories. Reddit has a lot of these. Reddit has the Smiling Man. Okay. This one is, how would you like to spend your afterlife? I never read this one before, so I have no idea what this is. She was popular and beautiful, a daughter and sister and friend, and at only 19, she was dead. She sat in a large room with white walls. An otherworldly orb of light floated in the center of the room. "You will be granted one wish," an angel told her. "How would you like to spend your afterlife?" She was confused. "I can choose?" "Yes, but choose carefully. You will not be asked again." That devil called hope slithered into her vain, naive, teenage mind. There was something she wanted. "I want to see my friends and family, to watch them at my funeral, to see who cried, who misses me, how they feel that I'm gone." The orb turned into a hologram screen, displaying her wake. The angel vanished, and the door locked behind him. Only 43 days into eternity, the screen disappeared, just for a minute. Then it came roaring back, showing her mother crying. 50 days, and it happened again. For longer this time, she froze, terrified by the unfamiliar silence. When Scream came back, her boyfriend was there, mumbling her name intertwined with the words wrong and sorry into her best friend's lips. Every time the screen disappeared, what was once her heart dropped into what was once her stomach. It started happening more and more. She was slowly being forgotten. Now she sits in silence most days, tormented by the proof of mortality. Today the screen flickered on for the first time in months. Her younger brother, now an old man on his deathbed, wheezed out her name. She sat on the floor and wept, knowing that soon the screen would turn off forever. That was I wouldn't say that was scary, but that's pretty sad. I kind of feel sad now. Okay, this one's, I'm going like on the top of the Reddit forums. This one is I Heard a Child. If this one's not good, I'll do one more and then the silly stuff will start. I work in insurance, and this is the oddest phone call I've ever gotten. It was around noon when the phone rang. Hello, this is Jim. How can I help you? A woman's voice answered, I'm looking for life insurance for my son, Robert. A small child's voice cut in. Mommy, I don't want insurance. Hush, Robert, you don't even know what insurance is, the woman replied. Well, we have several options for life insurance, I began. People get life insurance on their kids all the time, so it didn't raise any red flags. Holly, what are you doing? It was a man's worried voice. I'm getting life insurance for Robbie, the woman said. The man's voice softened. Here, I'll get the life insurance. Why don't you lay down? He took the phone. Sorry about that. Our only child, Robert, died a few weeks ago, and my wife's been a little off ever since. Sorry again. Click. That's not scary. That's creepy in the least. I need a good one. Go to the top. Okay, this one, 52 cards. It's second right under how would you like to spend your afterlife. Okay, this one's really short. They're 806-581-75170946-06-885-6403-8786-975-053-277-82400000000000. Possible orders for a deck of cards to be in. Years ago, the God and the devil each bet on a particular order of those 52 cards. If a deck were shuffled into God's order first, humanity would ascend to heaven. If a deck were shuffled into the devil's order first, humanity would be condemned to hell. The bet is still unshuffled. The next time you shuffle a deck, remember that humanity's fate hangs in the balance. That's not that scary either. Okay, let's not do short scary stories. Let's do really scary stories. I'll go on Reddit because they seem to have the... Okay, true stories of creepy encounters. Let's see, which one? Let's do the top. Okay, the top one is we need to protect each other. Okay. We need to protect each other. So after seeing a few stories about women protecting other women from creeps, I remembered this. Well, this one time I was at work in the mall after my shift ended, and I walked down the hallway to go outside to my car. In the hallway, there was a small girl. looked to be in her 20s but petite, and a big creepy janitor who worked at the mall. She was trapped with him between her and the door. Now, I was not being much bigger than her. I'm 5'6" and weigh 110 pounds on a good day. Was freaked the hell out, and my coworker was still at the store. But I buckled down, realized that the girl needed me as much as I needed her. Remembered something I saw on the internet, put my head up, relaxed my shoulders, thought murder, and walked over there. I grabbed her by the arm, shoved the very surprised janitor out of the way, and walked her to the door. She clung to my arm for dear life, and the janitor tried to follow, asking in rough English what the bleep was wrong with me. I ushered her outside the door. She spun around, and said with very bit of venom I could muster, "If you bleep touch us, I will bleep your throat out." For some reason, it worked. He backed the heck off, and I walked her to her car, and made sure she made it out of the lot safely. I guess just now that I threatened a lot of people with her throat ripping. This isn't scary stuff. These are just creepy encounters. I look for more. Okay, now these might be made up. This is Reddit. I'm going on Reddit No Sleep, where people submit their stories. Let's go to the top. What's a good one? Let's go to top. This one's called The Night the Dishes Washed Themselves. After this is the last one, then I'll do silly stuff. Okay, the night the dishes washed themselves. Though she'd been gone for several months, I still felt my wife's presence around me at all times. Perhaps I was imagining things. The loss of a loved one can have a weird effect on a person, regardless of how much of a skeptic you were. You find yourself humoring thoughts that you never would have considered before. You start seeing can't talk, sorry guys. You start seeing signs everywhere, no matter how small. It happened to me after my wife died. I believe she came back to comfort me in my time of need. It started with little things, signs that could have been easily dismissed. I'd noticed static on the radio, misplaced objects, chairs not pushed in all the way, etc. Some nights I could even feel her crawling next to me in bed. These are all things that would make any sane person roll their eyes at you or give you a look of pity, like they know your grief is causing you to see what you see. Part of me understood that, but at the same time, I wanted so badly for my wife to be haunting me. I didn't have any concrete proof. That is, not until the night the dishes washed themselves. Well, I got a thing to say about that. I'm sorry if I'm ruining the atmosphere for you guys, but how would she think crawling next to you in bed would make you feel better? I mean, I get it, like, try to imagine she's there, like everything's back to normal. But seriously, if you know she's dead and you think something's crawling next to you in bed, that's freaking scary. Excuse my French, but that is freaking scary. Okay, my wife always hated doing the dishes. It was her least favorite chore. Most nights I was the one who took care of washing up, though I often left the dishes overnight to soak. From time to time, my wife would surprise me by taking care of the job before I got home. I'd walk into a squeaky clean counter and a little note with "I love you" written in a large heart. A small gesture always brought a smile to my face, and I made sure to repay my wife in kind. One night, a few months after my wife passed, I walked through the front door. The house smelled like lime. "I'm home," I shouted. It's hard to break the habit. To this day, I still greet her when I come home. As expected, there was no reply. I made my way to the dining room to drop off my things. That's when I spotted the dishes neatly stacked in their rightful places. There's a note on the counter that said the same message my wife always left me. A flood of emotions washed over me. I was happy and sad at the same time. Holding the note to my face, I cried. There's no denying it now. My wife's spirit was watching over me. It kept... Wait. I lost it. No, I'm sorry. I'm sorry, guys. It kept happening over the course of the next few weeks. Each time the note would become damp with my tears. It was so comforting to feel close to my wife again. One day, I had the nasty flu. I called in sick from work and took some cold medicine to help me rest. It knocked me straight out. I spent most of the day passed out on my bed. By the time I awoke, I could hear clanging noises. Coming from the kitchen. My heart skipped a beat. I knew it had to be my wife's spirit. Still a little drowsy, I bounced out of bed and made a beeline for the kitchen, wondering if I would be able to talk to her. I wanted nothing more to wrap my arms around her ethereal form and tell her how much I loved her. As I rounded the corner, I saw a solid figure in the kitchen. Oh, shoot! It wasn't my wife. Who the fuck? I started staring at the scene in shock. An old man with a thick gray beard and tattered clothes turned towards me as I spoke. He yelped, dropping the bowl in his hands before I could even react. He bolted towards the front door and escaped, leaving me frozen in shock. I approached the counter only to find my wife's note waiting there for me. Hurt and all. It had been on him all along. The realization filled me with disgust, anger, and deep sorrow. It was like losing my wife all over again. I honestly thought she'd come back for me. I took so much comfort in knowing her spirit was with me, and that man had snuffed all of that hope of reuniting with her. The very same day I had the locks changed. Whoever the man was, I wanted to make sure he'd never get inside my home again. This evening, I came home to find a note on my counter and the dishes clean and stacked. I don't know how he's getting in, but it's scaring the shit out of me, especially since I'm over at my mom's house for the night. Oh my god, what? That was weird. Those weren't, like, so scary, but you gotta admit, those were at least a little creepy. Okay. Maybe I'm just bad at telling scary stories. It's been 22 minutes. Let's end the podcast off with some with some silly news articles. Yahoo News. Okay. Let's look at some crazy stuff. Blah, 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 blah. What are the best tablets? Maybe I should just look up crazy news articles. I can't find anything. I should prepare, like, ahead of time. Well, I guess I'll just tell a funny story then. To end. Funny story. Maybe there's some Reddit stuff. Reddit. Funny stories. Let's look. Okay. So, this one, I just went on a Reddit thing and says, what is the laziest thing you've ever done? I will probably cut out all that, searching. What is the laziest thing you've ever done? And I'm gonna read this big guy's thing. Okay. Late to the party, but this one's good to pass up. I was once on a U.S. military ship having breakfast in the wardroom, officer's lounge, when the operations officer, the OPS, walks in. This guy was the definition of not a morning person. He's still half asleep, bleary-eyed, basically a zombie with a bagel. He sits down across from me to eat his bagel and is just barely conscious. My back is to the outboard side of the ship, and the morning sun blazing in one of those portholes, putting a bright circle of light right on my barely conscious face. Oh, on his barely conscious face, sorry. He's squinting and chewing and basically just remembering how to be alive for today. It's painful to watch. But then the zombie OPS stops chewing. Slowly, he slowly picks up the phone and dials the bridge. In his well-known "I'm still totally asleep" voice, he says, "Hey, it's the OPS. Could you shift our bar pat?" "Yeah, 165, thanks." And puts the phone down. And then he just sits there, squinting, waiting. And then, ever so slowly, I realize that the big blazing spot of sun has begun to slide off the zombie's face and onto the wall behind him. After a moment, it clears his face and he blinks slowly a few times. And the brilliant beauty of what I've just witnessed begins to overwhelm me. By ordering the bridge to adjust the ship's back and forth patrol by 15 degrees, he's changed our course at just enough to reposition the sun off his face. He's literally just redirected thousands of tons of steel and hundreds of people just so he can get the sun out of his eyes while he eats his bagel. I am in awe. He slowly picks up his bagel, and for a moment I'm terrified at the thought that his own genius may escape him, that he may never appreciate the epic brilliance of his laziness. But between his next bites, he pauses, looks at me, and gives me the faintest sly grin before returning to gnaw slowly on his zombie bagel. That guy abuses his power in ways I can understand. Well, let me find. Well, if anything, I got a story of my own to tell. This is a short, funny story. And it won't be good because it's directly from my messed up, crazy brain. So, you might have heard different versions of this story, by the way. This isn't a very original one, but my brother told me this a while ago, so I'm going to tell it to you internet people. Once upon a time, there was 3 brothers. One was named Leaf, one was named Feather, and one was named Brick. One day, Leaf went to his mother and went up to his parents and asked them, "Why'd you name me Leaf?" The parents said, it's because a leaf fell on your head when you were born." Feather walked up to his parents and asked, "Why'd you name me Feather?" "Because a feather landed on your face when you were born." Brick walked up to the store. Sorry, guys. Brick walked up to his parents and was like, "Bah, bah, 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 bah." And the parents were like, "Yes, Brick, we know. We know." And that's the end. That's it. Want more? Okay, I know the perfect way to end this podcast. It's going to be with an ASMR ending. Hey, everybody. It's Sonic 1203. We're going to end this off with a ASMR ending, okay? I really hope you enjoy this ASMR ending and that it's really ASMRing you right now. If you don't know what that means, look it up after this podcast is over. And I hope you enjoy these ASMR noises I'm going to make for you. Sorry about that. I accidentally stopped the podcast by pressing buttons. But I hope you like this ASMR thing I'm going to do for you right now. Yeah. Yeah, I hope you enjoy that. And you have nightmares tonight. Subscribe to Sonic 1203 on YouTube and Sonic out. Sonic out. Sonic out. Sonic out.